At family dinner, my parents announced they'd turned my bedroom into my brother's tattoo parlor and gave me an ultimatum: sleep in the garage or get out. So I packed my bags. 37 days later, my phone lit up with 52 missed calls and one desperate text: "Leo is facing felony charges, we need you now." I stared at those words and smiled. Finally, they needed me. My name is Mia Chen. I'm 28 years old, and until last month, I thought I knew what family meant. The champagne flutes clinked around our mahogany dining table in Brooklyn Heights. Mom had pulled out the good china, the set she saved for Christmas and graduations. I should have known something was wrong. Tonight, we celebrate a milestone. Dad raised his glass, his voice booming with pride. "Your brother Leo finally has his own tattoo studio right here, in Mia's old room." The words hit me like ice water. 12 guests applauded. Aunt Carmen beamed. Uncle Diego nodded approvingly. Leo grinned, showing off the keys to my bedroom door. I sat frozen, fork halfway to my mouth. "The renovation cost us $43,000, Mom announced, sliding a manila envelope across the table toward me. "But Leo's talent deserves proper space." Inside the envelope, eviction papers, typed, notarized, legal. Mia Chen must vacate the premises by Friday, October 15th. The room will be converted to commercial use. My own parents had served me eviction papers at dinner. "Your belongings are packed," Mom said, cutting her steak like she was discussing the weather. "Everything's in garbage bags in the garage. We didn't want to delay Leo's grand opening." Garbage bags. 28 years of my life photo albums, college textbooks, the quilt Grandma Rosa made me stuffed into garbage bags like trash. Leo raised his beer bottle. "Thanks for the upgrade, sis. The room's got perfect lighting for my art." My room, the one I'd painted lavender in high school, where I'd studied for my nursing boards, where I'd cried after every breakup and celebrated every promotion. "She can sleep in the garage," Dad shrugged, "or find her own place. Either way, Leo needs that space more." The garage. They wanted me to sleep in the garage so their golden boy could tattoo dragons on trust fund kids. I didn't scream, didn't cry, didn't flip the table like every instinct demanded. I just smiled and stood up. "Congratulations, Leo," I said, my voice steady as steel. "I hope it's everything you dreamed of." Before we continue with how I turned their own greed against them, I want to thank those of you who support these stories. Your contributions help me share these moments of truth with others who need to hear that betrayal doesn't have to mean defeat. Every share, every comment, every small gesture of support plants seeds of hope for someone facing their own family betrayal. Because what my family didn't know as they toasted Leo's success with my sacrifice was that I'd been quietly documenting everything, every unpaid loan, every favor, every time they'd chosen him over me. That was the moment I knew justice wouldn't come from tears or pleading. It would come from my own hands. The silence that followed was deafening. I stood there in that dining room, surrounded by the laughter and clinking glasses of people celebrating my destruction, and for a moment, time stopped. The grandfather clock in the corner, the one I'd helped Dad restore when I was 16, ticked louder than my heartbeat. That's when the memories hit me. All at once. Like a dam bursting. I was 19. Dropping out of NYU 3 credits short of my nursing degree. Mom had been diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer, and someone needed to drive her to chemo appointments. Dad couldn't miss work, the mortgage payments were already 2 months behind. Leo was finding himself in California, sending postcards from music festivals. "Just for a semester," I told my advisor, packing up my dorm room. "Just until she's better." That semester became 3 years. I remember the smell of the oncology ward antiseptic mixed with fear. I held Mom's hand through every treatment, watching her hair fall out in clumps while Leo posted Instagram photos of sunset beaches and craft beer tastings. "Mia's so responsible," Mom would tell the nurses. "I don't know what we'd do without her. What we'd do without me." The irony burned now. Flash forward to 2020. The pandemic hit New York like a freight train. Dad's construction business dried up overnight. Mom's part-time job at the boutique disappeared. I was working double shifts at Mount Sinai, risking my life in those early COVID days when we didn't even have proper PPE. Every paycheck went home. Mortgage payment, $3,200. Property taxes, $890. Leo's car insurance, $340. The repair bill when he crashed his BMW into a fire hydrant, $4,600. It's just until things get back to normal, Dad promised. Normal never came. I stared at those eviction papers, my hands trembling. The letterhead was from Morrison and Associates, the same law firm I'd paid $8,000 to get Leo out of jail when he was arrested for dealing pills at a rave in Queens. He's young, Mom had pleaded. He made a mistake. A mistake that cost me my emergency fund. A mistake that meant I couldn't afford my own apartment when I'd finally saved enough to move out. The photographs on the mantelpiece blurred through my tears. There was Leo's high school graduation paid for with money I'd earned working nights at a diner. His 25th birthday party last year, the one I'd thrown in this very dining room, spending $800 on catering while I ate ramen for 3 weeks straight. And there, tucked behind Leo's college diploma, the one I'd never gotten was my nurse certification. Crumpled. Forgotten. Like everything else I'd sacrificed for this family, I believed love was real, I whispered to myself, watching Leo demonstrate his new tattoo gun to Uncle Diego. But it was all just a performance. The garage door keys felt cold in my palm as Dad dropped them there without ceremony. 28 years of being the responsible daughter, the reliable one, the backup plan, and this was my reward. She'll understand eventually, I heard Mom telling Aunt Carmen. Mia's always been so giving. Giving. The word tasted like poison. I looked around that dining room one last time at the table I'd bought with my tax refund, at the walls I'd painted during my vacation days, at the family I'd bled myself dry to support, and that's when something inside me shifted. Something cold and calculating that I'd never felt before. Because as I stood there, holding those garage keys like the insult they were, I realized something my family had forgotten in their celebration. I knew exactly where all the bodies were buried. And tomorrow I was going to start digging them up. The next morning I was supposed to be packing my life into boxes. Instead, I found myself standing in the hallway outside the kitchen, frozen by voices that cut through me like glass. Once Mia's finally out, we can start charging proper rent for the studio space. Mom's voice, hushed but sharp. Leo's already got 3 clients lined up for next week. I pressed myself against the wall, heart hammering. How much do you think we can get? That was Vanessa, Leo's girlfriend, the one who'd been suspiciously quiet during last night's celebration. Easy $1,500 a month. Maybe $2,000 if Leo builds up his clientele. Mom's tone was calculating, businesslike. That's $18,000 a year, just from Mia's old room. My breath caught. They weren't just kicking me out, they were planning to profit from it. What if she fights back? Vanessa asked. Legally, I mean. She's been paying into this house for years. Mom's laugh was cold, unfamiliar. Fight back? This is Mia we're talking about. She's too soft, too grateful, always has been. A pause. Besides, she doesn't know about the equipment loan. Equipment loan? My hands started shaking. The one in her name? Vanessa's voice dropped to a whisper. $43,000, co-signed 3 years ago when Leo needed startup capital. She signed those papers thinking it was for Mom's medical bills. Dad's voice joined the conversation, and I nearly gasped. He was in on this too. The memory hit me like a sledgehammer. 3 years ago, Mom had another cancer scare, a false alarm it turned out. But the panic was real. When Dad brought me those loan documents, I'd signed without reading. Just medical insurance, sweetheart. In case the treatments get expensive. Leo's tattoo equipment. Every needle, every ink bottle, every light fixture in my former bedroom bought with debt in my name. She's been making those payments automatically, Dad continued. Direct withdrawal from her checking account. Doesn't even look at the statements. 22 months left, Mom added with satisfaction. That's another $4,700 she'll keep paying us, even after she's gone. My vision blurred. I was paying for the equipment that had stolen my room, funding my own exile. Brilliant, Vanessa murmured. And she has no idea? None whatsoever. Dad's voice carried that same smugness I'd heard at dinner. Mia doesn't need family anyway. She's independent, self-sufficient, always telling us how strong she island. They were mocking my strength, using it against me. The beauty is, Mom's voice grew louder, more confident. She's been subsidizing this house for years without realizing it. The mortgage payments, the utilities, Leo's car insurance all coming out of her accounts while she thinks she's just helping family. My legs felt weak. I reached for the wall to steady myself. "How much is she paying total?" Vanessa asked. "Between the loan payments, her rent contribution, and the utility bills she covers, probably $4,000 a month." Dad's calculator mind was always precise. "That's $48,000 a year of her money flowing into this house." 48,000. Almost my entire take-home salary as a nurse. And now, Mom's voice turned triumphant, "We get to keep all that income flowing in, plus charge rent for Leo's studio space." It's like winning the lottery. She really doesn't suspect anything? Vanessa sounded almost impressed by their deception. "Look," Dad said, and I heard papers rustling. Bank statements going back 3 years. Every automatic withdrawal, every transfer to our accounts. She signs whatever we put in front of her. "She trusts us," Mom added with a laugh that made my stomach turn. "Still thinks family means something." I fumbled for my phone, hands trembling as I opened the voice recorder app. This conversation, every word of it was being captured. Every admission of fraud, every mocking laugh, every detail of their scheme. 43 minutes of recording. That's how long I stood in that hallway, documenting my family's betrayal in their own words. When they finally moved to the living room, I slipped into the kitchen and opened Dad's laptop, the one he'd left open on the counter. Bank statements, loan documents, transfer records, all there. All downloadable. All the evidence I needed to change everything. As I uploaded the files to my cloud storage, one thought burned through my mind. They thought I was too soft to fight back. They were about to learn just how wrong they were. That evening I didn't scream. I didn't throw things. I didn't storm back into that kitchen demanding answers. Instead, I did something far more dangerous. I went silent. My friend Jessica lived in a studio apartment in Hell's Kitchen. Cramped, expensive, but available immediately. "Stay as long as you need," she said, clearing space in her closet. I moved in with 2 suitcases and a laptop, telling my family I was giving them space to get Leo's business started. Mom seemed relieved. "You're being so mature about this, honey." If only she knew. The first thing I did was call Wells Fargo. "I need copies of all loan documents with my name on them," I told the representative, going back 5 years. 3 days later, a manila envelope arrived. Inside, 4 separate loans totaling $127,000. My signature on every one. Loans I thought were for Mom's medical bills, Dad's business expansion, emergency home repairs. All lies. Every penny had gone to Leo's dreams. Art school tuition I never knew about. The BMW. Professional tattoo equipment worth more than most people's cars. I photographed every document, uploaded everything to an encrypted cloud drive. Next, the mortgage records. A simple Freedom of Information request to the county clerk's office revealed something fascinating. The house, our family home for 30 years, had been refinanced 6 times in the last decade. Each refinance pulled more equity out, more cash for Leo's ventures. But here's what made my blood run cold. The most recent refinance, 18 months ago, listed me as a co-borrower. My signature, my credit score, my income verification, all used to secure a $280,000 loan against the house. A loan I'd never seen, never signed, never even knew existed. I stared at that forged signature for a full 10 minutes, sitting in Jessica's kitchen with my coffee growing cold. "They've been using my identity for years," I whispered to myself. Tuesday afternoon, I drove past the house. Leo's BMW was in the driveway, along with 2 other cars I didn't recognize. Through my old bedroom window, I could see the neon lights of his tattoo setup. Customers already lined up. My phone buzzed. A text from Mom. "Leo's first week was amazing. $2,400 in revenue already. You should be proud of what your sacrifice made possible." My sacrifice. As if I'd volunteered to be defrauded. I didn't respond. Instead, I drove to downtown Brooklyn and paid $500 for a consultation with Marcus Rodriguez, the best forensic accountant in the city. "Identity theft by family members," he said, reviewing my documents. "More common than you'd think, and prosecutable under federal law." "What are my options?" Marcus leaned back in his chair. "Criminal charges, civil recovery, asset freezing. You could potentially recover everything plus damages." "How long would it take?" 6 months to build the case. Maybe 8. Too long. I needed something faster. Something they wouldn't see coming. That night, I called the bank handling the mortgage. the one with my forged signature. I'm concerned about fraudulent activity on account number 7,739 to 4,851, I told the fraud department. I believe someone has been using my identity without authorization. We'll need to investigate immediately, the representative said. This could trigger an automatic loan review. Perfect. Wednesday morning brought a voicemail from Dad. His voice was strained, worried. Mia, we need to talk. The bank called about some kind of investigation. Call me back. I deleted the message without listening to it twice. Thursday, I received a certified letter from Chase Bank. The $43,000 equipment loan, the one funding Leo's studio, was 3 payments behind. My credit was being damaged. Legal action would follow. I laughed out loud in Jessica's kitchen. They'd been stealing my money to pay loans in my name, and now they'd stopped making the payments. Amateur hour. I called the bank's fraud department, reported the loan as unauthorized, requested immediate account freeze and investigation. By Friday, I had everything I needed. Bank records, forged documents, payment histories, recorded conversations. But most importantly, I had discovered something else in Dad's filing cabinet. A second deed to the house. One that listed me as 50% owner dating back to when I'd co-signed that first emergency loan at age 21. Legally, I owned half of everything they'd stolen from me. Saturday morning, I sat in Central Park with my laptop, organizing 7 years of evidence into a folder labeled The Prosecution. They thought I was soft, too grateful, too trusting. They thought I was a chess piece they could move around their board. But they'd forgotten something crucial. I'd been paying for this game all along, and now it was my turn to play. The invitation came exactly 1 year after they'd kicked me out. Family dinner this Sunday. Leo's business is thriving. We'd love to celebrate with you, Mom. I stared at that text for exactly 30 seconds, then I smiled. They thought I was crawling back, broken, desperate for family reconciliation. They had no idea what was coming. Sunday evening, I walked up those familiar front steps wearing my best black suit, the one I'd bought with money that was finally, legally mine. In my hand, a single manila folder. Dad opened the door, his face lighting up with false warmth. Mia, you look prosperous. I am, I said simply. The dining room was decorated like a celebration. The good china again. Champagne chilling. Leo sat at the head of the table, my spot from childhood, grinning like he'd won the lottery. Look who decided to come home, Mom said, kissing my cheek. Her voice dripped with condescension. We knew you'd come around eventually. I took my seat, said nothing, just placed the folder beside my plate. So, Dad raised his glass, a toast to Leo's incredible success. 1 year in business, and he's already booked solid through Christmas. Leo beamed. Thanks to this amazing studio space, best investment we ever made. They clinked glasses around me, celebrating my destruction. Using my money, in my house. That's when I opened the folder. Funny thing about investments, I said, my voice cutting through their laughter. You should always read the fine print. I pulled out the first document. Bank records, loan statements, all with Leo's name highlighted in yellow. For instance, did you know that Leo's amazing studio is built on equipment purchased with loans in my name? I slid the papers across the table. $43,000. Every needle, every ink bottle, every light fixture. Leo's face went white. What are you talking about? I'm talking about fraud, Leo. I pulled out the second stack. 7 different loans totaling $127,000, all signed with my forged signature. All funding your dreams. Mom's champagne glass trembled in her hand. Mia, that's not... Here's the mortgage paperwork. Another document hit the table. 18 months ago, you refinanced this house for $280,000, used my income, my credit score, my forged signature as co-borrower. Dad's face had gone gray. You don't understand the whole situation. Oh, I understand perfectly. I stood up, my voice steady as steel. You've been systematically stealing my identity for 7 years, using my credit to fund Leo's failures while charging me rent to live in my own house. The room was dead silent now. Even Leo had stopped pretending. But here's what you don't understand, I continued, pulling out the final document. That deed you made me sign when I was 21, the one you said was just for emergency purposes? It made me 50% owner of this property. I let that sink in for exactly 3 seconds. Yesterday, I exercised my legal rights as co-owner. I've transferred full ownership to myself, effective immediately. The fraud investigation with the bank provided more than enough evidence. Mom's face crumpled. You can't. I already did. I smiled, and it felt like the first genuine smile I'd had in years. Leo's studio? Built with fraudulent loans that are now in default. This house? Legally mine, purchased with money you stole from me. I looked around the table at their shocked faces. You kicked me out of my own home, called me soft, too grateful, too trusting. I picked up my folder, documents safely inside. Well, congratulations. You taught me exactly how much family loyalty is worth. I walked toward the door, then turned back one last time. Oh, and Leo? Your studio has 30 days to vacate. I've already found new tenants, a lovely young nurse who reminds me of someone I used to know. The front door closed behind me with the most satisfying sound I'd ever heard. Behind me, I could hear Mom crying, Dad shouting, Leo's voice cracking as he realized his empire was built on sand. But I didn't look back. I had a new life to build, and this time, nobody was going to steal it from me. Justice tastes sweeter when you serve it yourself. The phone calls started at 6:47 a.m. the next morning. I was sitting in my new apartment, the penthouse I'd bought with the money I'd recovered from their fraudulent schemes, sipping coffee and watching the sunrise over Brooklyn Bridge. My phone buzzed incessantly. 43 missed calls from Mom. 17 from Dad. 6 from Leo. I turned it off and finished my coffee in peace. By Tuesday, they'd figured out I wasn't answering. That's when they showed up at my door. Through the security camera, I watched them huddle in my lobby, Mom clutching a tissue, Dad pacing like a caged animal, Leo standing there in yesterday's clothes, looking smaller than I'd ever seen him. I buzzed them up. When the elevator doors opened, Mom rushed forward with red-rimmed eyes. Mia, please, we can work this out. We're family. Family. That word had lost all meaning. I handed Dad the eviction notice. Official letterhead. Legal terminology. 30 days to vacate. His hands shook as he read it. You can't be serious. I've never been more serious about anything in my life. Leo exploded then. All that spoiled child rage I'd watched him get away with for 28 years. This is insane! You're destroying our lives over money. I looked at him, really looked at him, and felt nothing. No anger, no pain, just a cold, clear understanding of who he'd always been. I'm not destroying anything, Leo. I'm simply collecting what was already mine. Mom tried a different approach. Guilt. After everything we did for you, raised you, loved you. You loved my bank account, I said quietly. There's a difference. Dad crumpled the eviction notice. Where are we supposed to go? For a moment, just a moment, I felt the old instinct to fix their problems, to offer solutions, to be the reliable daughter one more time. But then I remembered the garage, the garbage bags, the 43 minutes of recorded conversation where they'd laughed about my stupidity. That's not my problem anymore. They left 20 minutes later. No more shouting. No more threats. Just 3 people finally understanding that actions have consequences. The next month was peaceful in a way I'd forgotten was possible. I watched from my windows as moving trucks came and went from the old house. Mom and Dad found a small rental in Queens. Leo moved back in with his ex-girlfriend. None of them called anymore. The young nurse I'd rented Leo's former studio to was named Sarah, 26, just graduated, working double shifts at Brooklyn Methodist. She reminded me of someone I used to know, someone hopeful and hardworking who believed family meant unconditional love. I gave her the first month rent-free. Why, she asked, clearly suspicious of generosity. Because someone should benefit from that room who actually deserves it. 3 months later, I sat in my study looking at a photograph I'd kept from the old house. Christmas morning, 1998. Me and Leo building a snowman in the backyard while Mom and Dad watched from the kitchen window. We all looked happy. Maybe we even were for that moment. I'd spent years mourning the loss of that family. But now I understood something different. That family had never really existed. It was a performance, sustained by my money and my willingness to believe love could be one-sided. The real tragedy wasn't losing them. It was how long I'd let them convince me I needed their approval to matter. Outside my window, the city hummed with 8 million stories. Some of them were probably just like mine, children sacrificing themselves for families who saw them as ATMs. Parents confusing love with control. Siblings who never learned the difference between wanting and deserving. But some of those stories would have different endings, better boundaries, clearer consequences. People who learned to value themselves enough to walk away from those who didn't. I picked up my pen and started writing. Someone out there needed to hear that it's possible to choose yourself. That justice doesn't always come from courts or karma. Sometimes, it comes from finally understanding your own worth. And that's a lesson no one can steal from you. 1 year later, I sat in the office of my new business, Chen Family Financial Recovery Services, watching the sunset paint Manhattan's skyline gold and crimson. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd built a company helping people escape financial abuse, using the very skills I'd learned from being victimized by my own family. My phone buzzed. A text from Sarah, the young nurse renting Leo's former studio. First client of the day just left. Thank you again for believing in me. I smiled, remembering my own journey from that garage to this corner office. The framed photograph on my desk showed a different kind of family now. Jessica, who'd given me a couch when I had nowhere to go. Marcus Rodriguez, the forensic accountant who'd helped me build my case. Sarah and 3 other nurses I'd mentored through their own family financial crises. None of us shared blood. But we'd all chosen to stand with each other when it mattered. My old family photo sat in the bottom drawer now, not thrown away. That would have been giving them too much power over my emotions. But not displayed either, just acknowledged for what it was. Evidence of people who'd confused love with leverage. The door chimed. Mrs. Patterson, a 72-year-old widow whose son had been stealing her Social Security checks, sat down across from my desk. Her story was painfully familiar. Decades of sacrifice, trust betrayed, family treating her like a bank instead of a person. I don't know where to start, she said, her voice shaking. Start with the truth, I told her. The truth about what you deserve. The truth about what love actually looks like. The truth about the difference between family and parasites. As I walked her through the process, documentation, legal options, emotional boundaries, I thought about the lessons carved into my soul by betrayal. Never underestimate someone who has given you everything. My family learned that the hard way when the woman they'd dismissed as too soft turned their own greed into evidence against them. Greed blinds people to consequences, but justice never sleeps. For 7 years, they'd thought they were cleverly manipulating me. They'd forgotten that every transaction leaves a trail, every lie creates evidence, every betrayal plants the seeds of its own destruction. There are losses that can never be recovered, but truth always brings freedom. I'd lost the family I thought I had, but I'd gained something more valuable, the knowledge of my own worth, and the strength to protect it. As Mrs. Patterson left with her first steps toward reclaiming her life, I gathered my files and prepared to lock up. Through the window, I could see the building that used to be my childhood home. Sarah had painted the studio a warm yellow, and soft light spilled onto the sidewalk where Leo used to park his BMW. 3 blocks away, my parents were probably settling into their small rental, finally learning to live within their actual means. Leo was working at someone else's tattoo shop now, paying rent like everyone else, discovering what it meant to earn instead of inherit. I didn't hate them anymore. Hate requires energy. I'd rather spend building something better. But I didn't forgive them either. Forgiveness without accountability is just enabling in disguise. As I walked out into the New York evening, briefcase in hand, I thought about the message I'd want to leave with anyone watching this story unfold. Family isn't defined by blood, it's defined by who stands with you, not who bleeds you dry. They turned my sacrifice into their business plan. I turned their betrayal into my freedom. The neon sign of my office glowed behind me as I disappeared into the city night, carrying with me the most important truth I'd ever learned. Love that comes with conditions isn't love at all, it's just business. And I'd learned to be very, very good at business. Some debts can only be paid with justice. And justice, when it finally comes, tastes exactly like freedom.